Maya, a poor black girl, had always struggled to make ends meet. After a long, exhausting shift at Tony's Pizza, all she wanted was to go home and rest. But as she stepped into the freezing night, she noticed a frail old woman rummaging through a trash can, her hands trembling from the cold. Without hesitation, Maya walked up to her and gently offered the pizza she had been saving for herself. "You don't have to eat from the trash," she said softly. "Here, it's still warm." Seeing how fragile the woman was, and knowing how bitterly cold the night had become, Maya made a decision. She brought the old woman home. Maya's mother welcomed her with open arms, offering food and a warm place to sleep. Touched by their kindness, the woman insisted on helping at Maya's mother's small shop as a way to give back. But what Maya didn't realize was that this wasn't just another helpless stranger. This woman was about to change their lives in ways they never could have imagined. Hey everyone, welcome to Storyville. Today, I have a heartwarming story to share with you. Stay tuned. The warm smell of melted cheese and fresh dough filled Tony's Pizza, the small shop where Maya worked tirelessly every evening. The bell above the door jingled as another customer left, and Maya sighed, stretching her sore arms. At only 18, she had more responsibilities than most girls her age. With her father gone and her mother struggling to keep their tiny shop afloat, Maya worked extra shifts to make ends meet. Tonight was just another exhausting shift, but at least she had a few leftover pizzas to take home. As she stepped outside, the cold air bit at her skin. She pulled her worn-out hoodie tighter around her shoulders, preparing for the long walk home. That was when she saw her. An old woman, hunched and frail, was digging through a trash can near the alley. Her hands trembled as she picked at discarded scraps, and her hollow eyes darted around, as if unsure of where she was. She was dressed in layers of ragged clothing, and despite the chill in the air, her feet were wrapped in nothing but thin socks. Maya's heart clenched. She had seen homeless people before, but something about this woman, her confusion, her struggle, felt different. Without thinking, Maya stepped closer. She said gently, holding out a warm box of pizza. "Are you hungry?" The old woman flinched, her clouded eyes widening in surprise. She hesitated before slowly reaching for the box, her fingers shaking. "You don't have to eat from the trash," Maya continued softly. "Here, it's still warm." Tears welled up in the woman's tired eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely more than a breath. Maya watched as the woman took a bite, her face shifting from fear to relief. In that moment, she made a decision, one that would change both their lives forever. "Come with me," Maya said. "You shouldn't be out here alone." And so, with an empty pizza box in one hand and the old woman's frail fingers in the other, Maya led her down the street, unaware that she had just opened the door to a fate she never could have imagined. Maya walked carefully, her grip firm on the old woman's hand as they made their way through the dimly lit streets. The old woman's steps were slow and unsteady, her body frail and shivering against the biting night air. "Where are we going?" the woman asked, her voice weak but filled with uncertainty. "My home," Maya said softly. "It's not much, but you'll be warm and safe there." The woman nodded, her lips trembling as she tried to form words. I don't remember where I live," she admitted. "I don't even know my name." Maya glanced at her, a pang of sadness hitting her chest. She had seen homeless people before, but never someone like this, someone who seemed completely lost in their own mind. "That's okay," Maya said. "We'll figure it out." They turned onto Maya's street, a row of old, run-down apartments stacked closely together. The flickering street lights cast long shadows on the cracked pavement, but Maya barely noticed. She was used to the broken sidewalks and peeling paint. It was home. At the door, Maya hesitated for a moment before knocking. She wasn't sure how her mother would react to her bringing a stranger home, but she knew in her heart it was the right thing to do. A moment later, the door swung open, and Denise, Maya's mother, stood in the doorway, her eyes widening in surprise. "Maya?" she asked, her gaze shifting to the frail woman beside her daughter. "Who is this?" "She doesn't remember," Maya said quickly. "She was out in the cold, searching for food in the trash. I couldn't just leave her there." Denise's expression softened, her maternal instincts taking over. Without another word, she stepped aside and gestured for them to come in. "Come inside," she said warmly. "Let's get you something to eat." The old woman hesitated but nodded, stepping carefully into the warmth of the apartment. Inside, the small apartment was filled with the comforting scent of spices and warm broth. The living room was simple, just a worn-out couch, a small TV, and a wooden coffee table covered with textbooks and receipts. Denise hurried to the kitchen, already preparing a plate of steaming rice and stew. Maya led the old woman to the couch, helping her sit down gently. "You're safe now," Maya assured her. "What should we call you?" The woman frowned, as if struggling to reach into the depths of her memory. After a moment, she whispered, "I don't know. Everything feels like a blur." Maya exchanged a worried glance with her mother, but Denise simply set the plate in front of their guest. "That's okay," Denise said with a smile. "You can be whoever you want to be for now." The woman hesitated for a moment before picking up the spoon. As she took her first bite, her eyes fluttered closed, savoring the warmth of the meal. Tears pricked at Maya's eyes as she watched the woman eat. She had never seen someone so grateful for something as simple as food. "Thank you," the old woman whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't remember much, but I know kindness when I see it." Maya smiled, unaware that this single act of kindness would change her life forever. As the night stretched on, the woman sat in the warmth of the apartment, wrapped in one of Denise's old shawls. Maya brought her a cup of tea, watching as she held it with trembling hands. "I'm sorry for taking up space," the old woman said suddenly, her voice heavy with shame. "I don't want to be a burden." Denise shook her head. "Nonsense. Everyone needs help sometimes. You're welcome to stay as long as you need." The woman's eyes filled with tears, and for a moment, it seemed as if she wanted to say something more. But instead, she just nodded, her fingers tightening around the warm cup. Maya's heart swelled. For all their struggles, her mother still had the biggest heart of anyone she knew. As the old woman settled in for the night, Maya whispered to her mother, "Do you think we can help her remember who she is?" Denise sighed, glancing toward the woman curled up on their couch. "I don't know, baby. But whatever her story is, she's safe with us now." Neither of them realized that the woman on their couch wasn't just a stranger in need. She was someone whose past held more secrets than they could imagine. And soon, those secrets would change everything. The old woman lay on the couch, wrapped in a thick blanket, her frail body finally at ease. The warmth of the apartment, the kindness of Maya and Denise, it was more than she had felt in a long time. Maya sat nearby, watching as the woman's breathing slowed into the rhythm of deep sleep. She looked so peaceful, yet so fragile, like a person who had endured far more than she should have. Maya's mother walked over and placed a gentle hand on her daughter's shoulder. "You did a good thing tonight, Maya," she whispered. Maya nodded, though she couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to this woman's story, something bigger than just another person down on their luck. She glanced once more at their unexpected guest before heading to bed, unaware that this night was only the beginning of a journey that would change their lives forever. The next morning, the smell of frying eggs and fresh bread filled the air. Maya yawned as she stepped into the small kitchen, finding her mother cooking while the old woman sat at the table, watching her movements closely. "Good morning," Maya said, rubbing the sleep from her eyes. The woman looked up and offered a small, hesitant smile. "Good morning, dear." Maya sat down, watching as her mother placed a plate of food in front of the woman. She ate slowly, savoring every bite. "Do you feel any better today?" Maya asked. The woman nodded. "Yes, I feel safe here." Denise smiled warmly. "That's all that matters." As they ate, the woman looked around the apartment, her eyes lingering on the small shop area in the corner, where Denise sold handmade candles and small trinkets to help make ends meet. "Do you need help in the shop?" the old woman asked suddenly. Denise and Maya exchanged a look. "You don't have to do anything," Denise said kindly. "You should rest." The woman shook her head. "I want to help. It's the least I can do." Maya hesitated, But something in the woman's eyes told her that this wasn't about paying them back. It was about finding purpose. "Okay," Maya said with a smile. "You can help." And just like that, their unexpected guest became part of their little world. As the days passed, the woman, whom they began calling Margaret, after she vaguely remembered liking the name, became more comfortable in their home. She helped around the shop, greeting customers, organizing shelves, and even giving Maya advice on how to handle difficult customers. But there were still moments where she would pause, staring blankly at an object, her mind lost somewhere in the past. One afternoon, as Maya was helping a customer, she heard Margaret whisper, "I used to own something like this." She turned to see Margaret holding a small crystal pendant, her fingers brushing over its surface as if trying to unlock a hidden memory. "Do you remember where?" Maya asked gently. Margaret frowned, her lips pressing together. "No, but I think it was important." Maya's heart ached for her. Whatever Margaret's past was, it was like a puzzle with missing pieces. "We'll figure it out," Maya promised. Margaret smiled, but deep down, Maya knew the answers wouldn't come easily. One morning, Maya walked into the bathroom to find Margaret staring at her reflection in the mirror, her expression one of deep confusion. "I don't recognize myself," she murmured. Maya's chest tightened. "What do you mean?" Margaret touched her face, tracing the wrinkles on her skin. "I don't remember growing old. It's like my mind is stuck somewhere else, in another time." Maya didn't know what to say. How could someone forget their own life? "We'll help you find out who you are," she said. Margaret turned to her, her eyes filled with sadness. "What if I don't like what I find?" Maya hesitated. "Then we'll face it together." And with that, Margaret took a deep breath and nodded, trusting Maya more than she realized. Maya spent the next few days asking around town, showing a picture of Margaret to shop owners and passers-by, but no one recognized her. "Maybe she's not from here," Denise suggested. Maya sighed, feeling frustrated. "But then how did she end up in our city?" Denise placed a gentle hand on Maya's shoulder. "Some mysteries take time to unravel." Maya nodded, but she couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something important. And then, one day, everything changed. Maya was walking home from work when a gust of wind blew a stack of missing person flyers from a bulletin board. One landed at her feet. She bent down to pick it up, and froze. The face staring back at her was Margaret's. Her heart pounded as she read the bold letters at the top. "Missing, Margaret Sinclair." And beneath it, the words that made Maya's blood run cold. "Last seen after a car accident. Suffers from memory loss. Family desperately searching." Maya clutched the paper tightly, her mind spinning. Margaret wasn't just any homeless woman. She had a family, a home, a life, and she had been missing all this time. Maya didn't know what this meant yet, but one thing was certain: everything was about to change. Maya sprinted home, her breath coming in short gasps. The flyer was crumpled in her tight grip as she burst through the door. "Mom," she called out, startling Denise and Margaret, who were sitting at the kitchen table. "Maya, what's wrong?" Denise asked, concern filling her voice. Maya didn't answer immediately. Instead, she turned to Margaret, her hands shaking as she placed the missing person flyer on the table. Margaret frowned as she picked up the paper. Her eyes scanned the image, and her fingers trembled slightly as she traced over the photograph of herself. "Margaret Sinclair," she whispered, her voice filled with uncertainty. "That's you," Maya said softly. "You've been missing for months. Your family has been looking for you." Margaret's breath hitched, and a sudden flicker of something flashed in her eyes. Recognition, fear, disbelief. I have a family," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. Denise reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "It looks like you do, sweetheart." Margaret clutched the flyer tightly, her knuckles white. "I don't remember them." Maya felt a lump form in her throat. What if Margaret's memory never fully returned? What if she never felt like she belonged in the life she had lost? But then, Margaret looked up, something new in her expression. "Maybe, if I see them, I'll remember, she said hesitantly. Maya nodded. Then we'll take you to them. Margaret inhaled deeply, as if bracing herself. I want to go home. The next morning, Maya and Denise helped Margaret prepare. They found her the nicest clothes they could. One of Denise's old dresses that fit her well enough. Maya brushed Margaret's hair, smoothing it gently while Margaret stared into the mirror, trying to make sense of the woman looking back at her. I'm nervous, Margaret admitted. You don't have to do this if you're not ready, Denise reassured her. Margaret shook her head. I need to know who I am. Maya squeezed her hand. Then let's find out. With the flyer in hand, they set off toward the address printed on it. A wealthy suburban neighborhood just outside the city. Maya had never seen houses this big in real life. The mansion loomed over them, its grand white pillars standing tall against the bright morning sky. Perfectly trimmed hedges lined the driveway, and the scent of fresh-cut grass filled the air. Margaret's fingers trembled as they walked up the stone path to the front door. Do you recognize anything? Maya asked gently. Margaret's eyes darted around, taking in every detail. She frowned, as if something was tugging at the back of her mind, but she couldn't quite grasp it. I think so, she whispered. Maya hesitated before reaching up and pressing the doorbell. A soft chime echoed inside the house. Seconds stretched into eternity. Then, footsteps. The door opened, revealing a tall man in his 40s, his expensive suit slightly wrinkled, as if he hadn't slept in days. His eyes were tired but sharp, until they landed on Margaret. His breath caught. His entire body froze. Mom! Margaret's face went pale. I don't. She took a shaky step back. The man's eyes filled with tears. Mom, it's me, William. Margaret gasped. The name hit her like a thunderclap, and suddenly, the floodgates burst open. Her son. Her baby boy. Memories surged through her mind. The sound of his laughter as a child, the warmth of his hugs, the day she kissed his forehead before he left for work. And then, the accident. The pain. The confusion. William, she whispered, her knees buckling. Before she could fall, William rushed forward, catching her in his arms. His shoulders shook as he held her tightly, sobbing into her hair. I thought I lost you forever, he choked out. Maya and Denise stepped back, giving them space. This was a moment long overdue. Margaret held on to her son, finally remembering who she was. And with that, she was home. Inside the grand estate, Margaret sat on the plush couch, still overwhelmed. William hadn't let go of her hand since they walked inside, as if afraid she might disappear again. You've been missing for 3 months, William explained, his voice raw. We searched everywhere. The police said there was a chance you might not. He cut himself off, shaking his head. But you're here now. Margaret's hands trembled. I don't remember everything. But I remember you. William wiped at his eyes. That's all that matters. Maya and Denise watched quietly, both of them deeply moved by the reunion. How did you find her? William finally asked, turning to Maya. Maya hesitated. I found her near the pizza shop where I work. She was digging through trash, looking for food. William closed his eyes, his jaw clenching. He took a deep breath before turning back to Maya, his expression unreadable. You took her in. Maya nodded. She had nowhere else to go. I couldn't leave her like that. A long silence stretched between them before William finally spoke. Thank you, he said, his voice thick with emotion. You saved my mother's life. Maya shifted uncomfortably. I just did what anyone would do. William shook his head. No, not everyone would do what you did. Margaret smiled, squeezing Maya's hand. She's the reason I found my way home. Maya felt warmth spread through her chest. She had never expected anything in return for her kindness, but knowing she had made a difference was enough. She didn't know that her life was about to change. 2. The next morning, William arrived at Maya's tiny apartment with a surprise. You changed my mother's life, he said, standing at the doorstep. Now, I want to change yours. Maya blinked in confusion. What do you mean? William smiled. I want to offer you a stable job at my company. Full benefits. And I'll cover your college tuition. Maya's mouth fell open. What? You deserve it, he said simply. You didn't have much, but you still gave what little you had. That kind of kindness deserves to be rewarded. Denise gasped, tears welling up in her eyes. Are you serious? Very serious, William confirmed. This is my way of saying thank you. Maya couldn't believe what she was hearing. For years, she had struggled, dreaming of a better future but never knowing if she would get there. Now, because of one small act of kindness, everything was about to change. She nodded, swallowing back tears. I'd love that. And with that, her life took a turn she never could have imagined. Maya lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling. William's offer played over and over in her mind. A real job. A chance to go to college. A future she had only dreamed of. She turned onto her side, the dim glow of the streetlights casting soft shadows across her small room. This doesn't feel real, she whispered to herself. It wasn't that she didn't believe in kindness. After all, she had shown kindness without expecting anything in return. But now, the universe seemed to be giving it back in a way she never imagined. When morning came, Maya found her mother already in the kitchen, humming as she stirred a pot of oatmeal. Morning, sweetheart, Denise greeted, her voice light. Maya sat down at the table, rubbing her temples. I still don't know if I should accept it, Mom. It just feels like too much. Denise turned, giving her daughter a knowing look. Maya, when life offers you a blessing, you don't question it. You've worked hard your whole life. If anyone deserves this, it's you. Maya exhaled. I guess I just don't want to feel like I owe him anything. Denise smiled softly. You don't. You gave his mother kindness when she had nothing. Now, he just wants to do the same for you. Maya nodded slowly. Maybe her mother was right. Maybe this was her second chance. A week later, Maya found herself standing in the massive glass building that housed Sinclair Enterprises. The lobby alone was bigger than their entire apartment complex. She clutched her folder tightly, nerves twisting in her stomach. Relax, William said beside her, smiling. You'll do great. Maya exhaled sharply. I'm still in shock that you even wanted to hire me. William chuckled. You have no idea how rare it is to find people who are both hardworking and kind. Those are the kinds of people I want on my team. Maya glanced around, taking in the sight of polished floors, sleek office furniture, and well-dressed employees walking with purpose. This was a world she had never belonged to. But maybe now, she did. As the day went on, Maya met her co-workers, learned about her responsibilities, and even got her own desk. She had never felt so hopeful about the future. Maya's first paycheck came 2 weeks later. She stared at the number on the check, her hands trembling. This was more money than she had ever made in her life. She ran home, bursting through the door. Mom! She shouted. Denise turned, wiping her hands on a dish towel. What is it? Maya held up the check, tears filling her eyes. We don't have to struggle anymore. Denise covered her mouth, her own eyes shining with emotion. Oh, baby. Maya pulled her mother into a tight hug. For the first time in years, they weren't just surviving. They were living. Margaret sat at the kitchen table, a pen in her hand and a soft smile on her face. Dear Maya, she wrote, I may have lost my memory, but I will never forget the kindness you showed me. You saved my life, and in doing so, you changed yours. You have a heart bigger than this world, and I have no doubt you will do great things. She folded the letter carefully and placed it in an envelope. It was a small gesture, but she wanted Maya to know just how much she had meant to her. Maya sat in the park that evening, the letter in her lap. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. She thought about how much had changed in such a short time. A few weeks ago, she was just a pizza delivery girl trying to make ends meet. Now, she had a job, an education waiting for her, and a future full of possibilities. And all of it happened because she chose kindness. Maya smiled, closing her eyes as the cool breeze brushed against her skin. She didn't know what the future held. But for the first time, she wasn't afraid. Margaret's health improved as she settled back into her home. William hired the best doctors to monitor her, ensuring that she regained her strength. One day, Margaret held her son's hand and smiled. "I may have lost my way for a while, but I think I was meant to meet Maya and her family." William nodded. "Fate works in strange ways, Mom." Margaret chuckled. "Indeed, it does." Margaret slowly began recalling details of the accident. "I remember driving," she told William one day. "It was raining. I must have lost control of the car." The memory was faint, but it was enough to piece together what had happened. "I must have wandered after the accident, confused, lost. But something led me to Maya." William squeezed her hand. "And I'll always be grateful for that." Margaret visited Denise's small shop one last time before officially moving back into her estate. "This place saved me," she said, running her fingers over the wooden counter. Denise smiled. "You'll always have a home here." Margaret reached into her bag and pulled out a check. "I want you to expand this shop," she said, pressing it into Denise's hands. "Turn it into something even bigger." Denise's eyes filled with tears. "I can't accept this." Margaret chuckled. "I insist. Consider it a thank you." Denise finally nodded, overwhelmed with gratitude. Her small shop was about to become something much more. On Margaret's final day at Maya's apartment, she held the young girl's hands tightly. "You gave me my life back," she said. Maya shook her head. "You would have found your way eventually." Margaret smiled. "Maybe, but I wouldn't have met you." Tears welled in both of their eyes as they hugged one last time. "I'll never forget you," Margaret whispered. "And I'll never forget you," Maya replied. Even though Margaret was back in her mansion, she and Maya stayed in touch. She visited often, bringing gifts, stories, and laughter. William, too, became a constant presence in Maya's life, not just as a boss, but as a friend. They weren't just a billionaire's family anymore. They were family. Margaret and William's bond grew stronger, their time apart making them cherish every moment. One evening, as they sat by the fireplace, Margaret smiled. "I think everything happened the way it was supposed to," she said. William nodded. "I think so too." They had lost time, but they had gained something even greater: new connections, new perspectives, and a newfound appreciation for life. With William's support, Maya officially enrolled in college. Her first day on campus was surreal. She stood among students who had never known struggle, but she held her head high. She had fought for this moment, and she wasn't going to waste it. One evening, William had a big surprise for Maya, an apartment for her and her mother. "You shouldn't have to worry about rent while working and studying," he told her. Maya's eyes widened in shock. This is too much." William chuckled. "It's a small request from my mom. She wanted to do this for you." Maya felt tears well up. "I don't know what to say." William smiled warmly. "You've done so much for us, Maya. Let us do this for you." Maya wiped her eyes, her heart full. Her life was changing in ways she never thought possible. With Margaret's help, Denise's small shop transformed into a full-scale bakery. Maya helped with the renovations, smiling as she watched her mother finally live her dream. "You did this," Denise told her one day. Maya shook her head. "No, Mom. We did this together." And that was the truth. On Maya's graduation day, Margaret handed her a small card. Inside, it read, "Never stop being who you are. The world needs more people like you." Maya hugged her tightly. "I won't." Margaret smiled. "I know." Years later, Maya stood outside her own successful business, watching customers walk in and out with smiles on their faces. She had come a long way, from struggling to survive to building a life filled with purpose and stability. And to think, it all began with a simple act of kindness, a warm slice of pizza offered to someone in need. Life had taught her an important lesson. Kindness is never wasted. A small gesture can change a life, and sometimes, it can change the world. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a like and don't forget to subscribe for more heartfelt stories.